Cities are key to how we build a prosperous and inclusive South Africa. This is not a case that we have to argue much for anymore, and it is easily demonstrable. Simple demographic measures in our IUDF tells us that South Africa is close to 70% urbanized and still growing. An assessment of economic contribution shows us that over 80% of our national gross value add comes from our cities and large towns. And 2,500 years of international evidence about the role of cities through history also tells us that they are crucial. Our cities offer the rich mix of diverse people, diverse skills, infrastructure, and capital to drive innovation, and even to lead on emerging and long-range agendas from climate change to digital transformation. This is the urban dividend that the IUDF promises and its new deal. So when we talk about pushing our economy up that hill, we need the cities to be in gear and with a foot, as the DG said, on the accelerator pedal. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. However, we must also beware. Cities have also risen and fallen over history. We know that in the late 4th century, the Roman Empire crumbled after nearly 500 years as the world's greatest superpower. And Carthage, modern-day Tunis, arguably the wealthiest city in the world in those historic times, fell multiple times. Historians who have continued to study these events have offered various theories about the reasons for Rome's collapse. Interestingly, these range from military failures to factors that might sound more warning bells for us because they are economic, administrative, and even environmental factors such as government corruption, political instability, crippling taxation, and natural disasters and climate change. There are also more contemporary examples you all know about, like Detroit. Not only the fall from being one of the world's premier industrial cities to its economic collapse from the mid-1950s, but also in 2013, in its 2013 bankruptcy, in a mire of economic and administrative factors, which included indebtedness, a contracted revenue base coupled with a bloated municipal employment, collapse of basic city services, high unemployment, and rampant crime. And there may be even more poignant examples closer to home if we are not careful. With our own urbanization, political and administrative challenges here that sometimes have our cities, in spite of their great potential, teetering on the brink of collapse. Our cities cannot be allowed to fail, and too big to fail is clearly not a hope that we can count upon in order to rest on our laurels. Those of us in this room are responsible for ensuring that we are accountable and vigilant. We need the kind of leadership and governance that moves us beyond the threat of collapse to the opposite end of thriving as a society. And thirdly, the system has to recognize cities as actors, not as subjects. Although we have made some progress in South Africa in recognizing this role of cities, we're still working through how to get all systems pulling in the same direction. And we are indeed not unique in this. Way back in 1969, a Professor Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who later became the Urban Affairs Advisor to President Nixon, and then later a powerful US senator, said to the US the following, and I quote him: "There is hardly a department of or agency of the national government whose programs do not in some way have important consequences for the life of cities and those who live in them. Frequently, one is tempted to say normally, the political appointees and career executive concerned do not see themselves as involved with, much less responsible for the urban consequences of their programs and policies. They are, to their minds, simply building highways, guaranteeing mortgages, advancing agriculture, or whatever. No one has made clear to them that they are simultaneously redistributing employment opportunities, segregating and desegregating neighborhoods, depopulating the countryside, and filling up the slums, etc. All these things as second and third consequences of nominally unrelated programs. Close quote. He was commenting upon balkanized intergovernmental relations in the US and the failure to recognize and enable cities to play their parts in an integral part of economy shaping in their own right. In cities, we need to see the virtuous confluence of national housing and human settlements, Minister Gordon Fredericks, transportation, infrastructural, economic and environmental, and others. All of those policies and objectives with local specificity and opportunity.